Hi, YouTube family. It's a pleasure connecting with you again. This week, I've got an exciting topic. Unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably been hearing about these Egyptian uh, technology findings. There's been this LIDAR technology which has gone onto the places of Egypt and seen a whole bunch of hidden structures. Let me just share a little image here so you know we're on the right track here. So yeah, they've got all this LiDAR technology, which has been like LiDAR scans, which has revealed what mainstream, archaeology has long dismissed. There's these, apparently massive hidden structures beneath the Giza plateau that extend, far deeper than anyone, has ever imagined. Another little quick image here. So look, this is obviously someone's rendering of the situation underneath Egypt, and of course it was blowing the internet up, for ages. It's just going whoa, and so all sorts of theories going on out there. We knew it, you knew it, I knew it. Everyone knew that there was something more underneath Egypt than what we thought. What the official archaeologists are telling what's going on there. And so, what I want to share today is pretty exciting because we've been receiving massive downloads about what's really going on these underground structures. So this week is a bit of a pre-frame as to what's been happening, and there's a bit of a story to it. I'm going to tell you a backstory, and that's all about this frame up because next week, I think by then, we should have downloaded the entire morphogenic field of what's happening on underneath there. So it's a massive intel drop next week that's going to come, but you need to get this video first into you so you understand the picture of what's going on with Egypt. So I think it's going to be a quite revolutionary. This is going to be never before intel that's ever been going out that's going to state what the original structure and purpose is, not by guessing, but by receiving, receiving the downloads from the Christic consciousness streams, the high councils, the Emerald Order, and they are now ready to reveal what was happening under there. The reason why these underground structures couldn't be revealed before because there was a bit of a lockdown happening in the consciousness codes, and it was Alea's birthday last week. We were out on the birthday. We came home from the birthday, and there was something very funky in the field, and it happened to link in to this underground city in Egypt, these massive structures. There was a lost code there that we didn't find when we went in 2022. So some of you may know or not know that over these last years, we've been going around a lot of these sacred sites and parts of the world to find the dark architecture as to what's really been, locking the planet down and creating this lack of movement that we've seen for thousands of years, the same old hierarchical control structures. And so, this backstory goes back to 2022, where we, took another group to Egypt. This time we took our core team as well, who would manage to find this amazing other couple who he's an incredible seer, and he's the best I've ever worked with, and he's very close to us. We live just down the road from each other, as it turns out. We're very close in our families. And together, the four of us have been able to, between our consciousness fields, find much of the hidden, let's call it dark architecture that's been locking down the planet. So when we went back in 22 with the core team, the crew, what was anchoring down the field in Egypt, the issue with Egypt was there was still a lot of dark architecture on the grids of Egypt. And this was all engineered to basically siphon life force, block dimensional access, and distort our memories of our true divine origins. So obviously, if you're hearing this for the first time, why would that be? There's been a nefarious sort of group of interfering ETs that have, capped humans' consciousness and used us as a battery pack to siphon energy from to continue to sustain their life because they are no longer connected or tethered to Creator, to God. They fell so far from God, they've disconnected their consciousness from God, and so they need battery sources to continue to survive. And our planet has been a very strong source of that loosh. If you want to, understand this a little bit more, I think the Wachowski sisters or brothers, the people who made The Matrix, did a very good job when they made Jupiter's Ascending. You can check out that movie and check out how Earth's a harvesting planet. Anyway, what's been rippling now across the internet is what are these structures coming up? And if we take a look at this other one, there's been all sorts of these types of images circulating over the internet, where these massive columns, that go down, 1 to 2 kilometers. They are like massive, and it's go, what is this? So, what I can say at this point is that this trip to Egypt, and what I have got so far in the morphogenic field download, is that these installations were seeded a long time ago during what's called the Post-Zepp Tepi distortion period. Zepp Tepi is known in the ancient texts as the first time. It's the first primordial golden age, where Christic beings, divine beings, walked amongst humanity, and it was where the original Christic temple grids were. These temple grids were alive with the kind of harmonic technologies that bridged heaven and bridged earth. And this is really, really what some of these structures really are. And we're starting to tune in now to the morphogenic field of it. And we're still receiving the downloads from it, so I don't want to give too much away until we got the full picture. But we're only been able to start to see this because, of course, everyone's awareness has been on it. And then we managed to find a code underneath it. But before I go into that code, what it was and what the dark architecture was, I'm going to go into Zepp Tepi a lot more next week when we finish, getting all the information about it. And that raises a question for you: well, how do you get information? It's about tapping into morphogenic fields and working with different streams of consciousness and being able to receive the information from different streams of consciousness. In particular, there's Christic intelligence fields, organic Christic intelligence fields that we work with that allow us to bridge all the way up into the Emerald Order, up at the 48D. And those information streams come from high and then from source down through there. And so if we take a look at that old ancient civilization, it got intercepted, and essentially the interference was all about to rewrite the planetary memory fields. It wanted to cut off the Oversoul streams to impose a false matrix of control under the guise of sacred rites back then. And so when we took a tour back in 2022, Egypt Trinity tour, we brought together a collection of beings that had codes to kind of pierce the veil and access a lot of the locked architecture that had remained in much of the temple spaces. So, shout out to all those who came to Egypt with us then. All of them, all the people that came, all of them and their consciousness fields had the keys that literally opened the gates for the start of this dark architecture to fall, which, we went on to take groups to Vatican, London, and Washington, whereby much of that dark architecture holding and locking the planet down was able to get kind of cleared energetically. If it wasn't for Egypt, none of the changes that we'd be seeing now on the planet would be taking place, because, all the old systems and structures were supported by dark architecture. And so, this is you're probably going, well, how does this work? How does deep level guardianship work? Well, what tends to happen is that individuals feel an undeniable call to attend certain tours, events, retreats, going on by certain people around the world. There are some groupings that come together for the specific purpose of this. Our group's one. I'm sure there are other groups out there, but it's not by chance. It's by their unique DNA coding, their unique soul signatures, and their unique soul signatures carry access keys and codes to specific temples, vaults, networks, ancient architectures. And, these are all the places in their soul records and memories that they're just drawn to. And of course, what's been happening is that these places and structures that they've been connected to across their timelines, according to their soul's covenant, their soul agreement. And so when the right combination of people come together, each carries their piece of the map with the correct permission sets and the correct consciousness to be able to read the field accurately and open up the consciousness gates. The gates can open. And when they do, miraculous things become possible. And so, just in 2022, due to the, soul coding of the group, the contracts held by the collective resonance of the group, we were able to, clear some major grid work templating across Egypt complexes. And just to sort of give you one little example here, we did come across in the Temple of Karnak a massive antimatter vortex. And that antimatter vortex was just locking down the planet. So people would go to Egypt and you'd just be laced with kind of antimatter. And so, you're coming out there, you're thinking you're trying to get an activation, but actually, you know, it's just full of like antimatter. So there are a number of things that happened in Egypt, which I would say was a catalyst to starting on this role of knocking over a lot of other dark architecture on the planet. Egypt seems to be the starting point for many things. So, you know, we were able to, for example, on that tour, have the return of the Osiris solar crystal stream. You might know the story of Osiris. He was cut up into 13 pieces by his brother Set, and consciousness scattered everywhere. Isis was able to, you know, bring back 12 of them, but they couldn't find his penis. It was still lost. We managed to find it in that on that tour. It was held in an inverted dimension, hidden at a different angle in a different dimensional sphere. So that's why it was almost impossible to find. But you know that was integrated, and the Osiris consciousness was able to be reintegrated into his Oversoul stream. There was kind of like a Neophylim reversal codes. They were running the Type 3 indigo contracts on the planet. Some of you who are starseeds may recognize the indigo contracts. Type 1 indigo usually have contracts to work with more land, you know, up to a 48 strand template. Type 2 indigo is, you know, usually great healers, 24 up to 42 strand DNA templates. And then you've got the Type 3 indigo contracts that are base 10 DNA strands looking to engineer back up to 12 strands. And what's happened previously with the indigo Type 3 contracts was those people have, you know, had a difficult life assignment. They literally had two souls wrestling over one body. They had the Orifim soul of light, which is, you know, their sort of more angelic lineage, and the Orifim soul would be in the body, but also the Neophylim soul would be trying to wrestle with the body as well. So these children and adults would often split between the soul of light and soul of dark, and it would be flip-flopping between the two, depending upon the environmental frequencies around. Gaming, of course, would put kids straight into the Neophylim soul, and that was a more aggressive, nasty kind of soul that was there. That was part of the Neophilims. And what was interesting on that tour was that the Neophylim planetary contract dissolved, and the entire Neophylim consciousness field went back. So there was a mass rehabilitation through the Neophylim consciousness fields, which was, you know, so fascinating. We had the resurrection of Anubis, restoring his rightful station as the guardian of the soul passage, releasing Anubis from the reversal assignment by the Saturnian control field. The Saturn control field had come in and created a reversal on Anubis. And so Anubis wasn't actually the guardian of the soul passage at all, and was reversing it and keeping souls locked. I mentioned the antimatter everywhere, you know, Luxor, Philae, Idfu, you know, all of them. And the clearings there allowed them to return to their, you know, organic alignment with more the Earth's crystalline core. And so that meant that Karnak, you know, reactivated as a functioning harmonical node on the planetary plasma grid again. And finally, just the other thing I wanted to share was the revival of Sekhmet's creational fire, right? Reconnected her to her stellar lineage, her children, and the return of her cosmic star children. A beautiful reunion happened for Sekhmet. And so she wasn't held in this pain energy anymore. That massive field of antimatter in the Temple of Karnak was linked into a dark dragon that was keeping Sekhmet in pain and suffering. So that's why she was in the war, destruction type energy. So that's kind of fully liberated now. And so, you know, back in 22, these activations kind of restored a lot of, you know, more, I would say, divine solar architecture across the Nile, but also started to seed the planetary fields with new oversoul embodiments, new triadic flames of consciousness fields coming through. Listen, if you're interested in going into a little bit further, where you can get great cutaway footage when we're doing reviews of all of this, you can watch a little summary of the tour, 15-minute video with some great backdrop footage. I'll put the link in the description below. Watch the Egypt Trinity tour video, and you can go check that out, where we talk about it much more in detail with a lot of B-roll over the back. You know, so that group, that tour group, was able to function at a, you know, harmonic bandwidth required to interface with these black coded vaults. You know, the Zionist overlays, the seraphinic reversal seals that were placed beneath the Great Pyramid during the post-Atlantean fall. Now, over the last few years, we've, had missions that have taken us into the heart of, many of these, let's say, pillars: Vatican City, London City, Washington. Each pillar kind of acts as its own global dominion structure of architectural control. And, Egypt was the starting point of knocking those over. Vatican, that's obviously the spiritual stronghold. They're deeply embedded in the religious control programming. The Vatican City, hijacks the Christos Sophia blueprint, distorts true divine gnosis, and beneath the cathedrals are all the architecture of the inverted masculine priesthood, dark ritual orders, linked to the Satyrian brotherhoods, various off-world factions that manipulate spiritual perceptions. So, they've got the City of London, operates as the financial nerve center of the world. It's the command point for economic enslavement. It's driven by a lot of Babylonian debt, black magic, bloodlines, banking dynasties. The Rothschild link networks are all linked in here. We've got the AI-infused grid systems merging with a lot of these draconian trade codes and siphoning linked into this designed to redirect planetary abundance away from the God stream, God's natural organic abundance, into sort of, the usual coffers, so to speak. So that's sort of London anchoring that down. And then you got, of course, Washington acts as the military and technological enforcement hub. It's, housing a lot of war machine consciousness, global manipulation technologies. It's Capitol Hill blueprint is similar of Roman imperialism, but behind the veil, it's, these incredible off-world alliances, black cube architecture that dominates sovereignty through fear, surveillance, and a lot of military oppression. And so these are these codes of energy and consciousness. Now, I'm not talking about things physically. I'm talking about the energetic fields of consciousness. These energetic fields of consciousness go on to create the templates that create drive behavior and create the system. Everything has to be, done energetically before it can happen physically. So those three cities create the unholy trinity of control. Each are, a facade for deeper multidimensional strongholds. So as, many groups around the world have been, doing their pieces, we've been dismantling, dark architecture across the earth grids, temple by temple, city by city, and, we unravel power at the root. And Egypt was the key. Now, this is kind of the three cities were next after Egypt, and then there's been a whole bunch of other stuff. It's been about 4 years of clearings. There's through a lot of dark, deeply satanic, nasty stuff that we've been uncovering. It's all rather unsavory, but that's been the state of our planet for the last, millennia. So these are all have been cleared out a little bit, and this is kind of where our story picks up with this LIDAR technology. These massive pillars and chambers beneath the Giza plateau. And these structures have been obscured by time, denial, and, those discoveries just didn't confirm what many of us have sensed. It revealed the final anchoring mechanism of the Egypt, what I might call the Egypt Control Codex. This is the control codex of, Egypt is this, but actually underneath that, there was a whole another thing that was going on with Egypt that I think we're almost ready to reveal. That layer of, hey, this is what Egypt is, was really the root of the planetary spiritual distortion. And this was being held in place by all these different pillars that were anchoring down, the earth through the Vatican, Washington, London, all these different control systems. But Egypt, the trying to control the perception of Egypt, has been a key to all of this. Now, the pillars that got released in the public's awareness, suddenly a public consciousness has been revealed. Right? Oh my goodness, what is that? And so, of course, the internet is pretty alive with a lot of speculation. But I'll tell you what we found down there recently. And after we went down there, there was something that we missed in the dark architecture of Egypt in 2022. We took a group in 2022. We didn't know about that, so we didn't look underneath the pyramids too deeper down. And after Alea's birthday last weekend, something's up in the field. And what we were able to track with our core team, there was a Black Ankh with wings architecture. So what I want to do is I'm going to go into a discussion on the Black Ankh with wings architecture. And it's just, it's way more than an ancient architecture. It's a whole consciousness suppression system. And it's the code name from the higher realms is the Ankh reversal seal. And this Ankh reversal seal was located at the bottom of the structure, which is why we missed it in 2022. So we've identified this consciousness suppression system. This was the final anchor of Egypt, and in 2022 we missed it. We didn't know about it, and I think that now we've pulled this off, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the meaning and codex behind it. We pulled out this deep architecture last weekend, and all of a sudden we're getting all these new streams of consciousness from the hidden civilization down there, which was a Christed city, which we weren't able to access before. So by the time I get to next week, I should have a load more interesting intel about this kind of city. And so this Ankh reversal seal, the Black Ankh with wings, came from this post-fall Atlantean Egyptian hybrid period with an energetic signature of it that was combining a distorted immortality loop with this winged soul entrampment. So the original Ankh, if you can all visualize the Ankh, in its pre-distorted form, represents the eternal life force flowing from source. It's this beautiful fusion of the divine masculine, which is the vertical staff, and the divine feminine, which is the loop. And so the key, the Ankh was the key to resurrected embodiment through the heart. It used to sit on the heart, the Ankh, and the rod would go down like that as a consciousness technology. And so in solar temples before the fall, the Ankh was used as a frequency tuning device, linking the soul to the organic life currents through the Christos Sophia spiral. So the Black Ankh, however, the distortion that we found last weekend underneath at the bottom of these massive pillars represents something very, very different. What happened is that the original, Ankh of the fusion of divine masculine, the staff, and the divine feminine loop, right, which brought you into the Christos Sophia spiral stream. The Black Ankh represented something very different. It was a reversal sigil, and it was used by the distorted priesthoods and hybrid control structures and certain Orion factions. And what it did is it inverted the current of eternal life into a loop of containment. So you got contained, and it hijacked the resurrection codes and placed them with this synthetic immortality. This was this part of the AI reincarnational cycling that happened to our souls on Earth. And what it did is it trapped our souls in these false ascension spirals that appeared light filtered but are capped by the black cube and the Saturnian and the Saturn matrices. If you know about the Saturn matrix, the rings of Saturn are broadcasting an anti-sound. The anti-sound frequencies were coming down into captured by the moon. Moon would act as a satellite to redirect those energy frequencies down into the planet, creating these frequency overlays onto humanity. And so we became trapped in these false ascension spirals from this Black Ankh architecture, and it replaces kind of this heart-based awakening with a much more mental control way of navigating, a much more mentalism approach to spirituality rather than the heart-based, and it created a hierarchical control system. Then the wings that are added onto the Black Ankh with wings on the architecture of the code we found. Originally the wings should be linked to Mart and then to Ba. It means they were supposed to symbolize the soul's ability to freely travel between dimensions, right? But this became a reversal symbol, and it branded a branding seal that trapped our soul in this, pseudo liberation loop where we think we're liberated, but actually we're not. And so many of the lineages, the priestesses and the initiates, were encoded with this in their rituals to keep them earthbound. So they were unable to fully ascend and were unable to claim their oversoul sovereignty because of the Black Ankh architecture. And so if we take a look at what has this meant for our planet, well, this was embedded deep under Giza, right, encoded into the temple glyphs as this unconscious sigil, right? And this subsurface frequency emitted into these shafts, and the frequency went up into the pyramids and out through the world. And so these ancient priesthood rites were where sacrificed replaced resurrection. And the structure of this code served as a planetary capping device, right? And it anchored in this really low density reversal frequencies that have been designed to suppress DNA awakening. Right? Our DNA should naturally kind of open organically, spontaneously throughout our lifetime, as per our original, divine blueprint. Our original design was strands 4, 5, and 6 would begin to open when we reached a certain age, 12 years old to 22, we would begin accreting our soul consciousness. Strands 4, 5, and 6 would access into gateways, dimension 4, 5, and 6, and would begin accreting our soul. Then 22 to 33 would be going into strands 7, 8, and 9, and would begin accreting our oversoul. And then, 33 to 44, we would begin opening strands 10, 11, 12, where our avatar consciousness resides on dimensions 10, 11, 12, and we would begin accreting that. But this Black Ankh architecture kind of created these frequency layers to cap our consciousness, to prevent that DNA from naturally awakening. And it created this quarantine field, and it prevented humanity from being able to access our oversoul pathways. So this Giza pyramid shaft acted as this convergence node for inverted timelines and encoded suppression, deep suppression of the solar masculine and the solar feminine currents. And so this has been so interesting because the effects of this have been, it's been so sad. I mean, it's like devastating for human consciousness, right? We've had soul fragmentation. It's been very difficult previously for soul aspects to reunite with our oversoul and integrate that. It's created all these false light pathways. Initiates felt they were ascending, but they were actually looping in these astral, fields of consciousness. And then it also created this masculine-feminine polarization. The Ankh reversal code disrupted divine union templates, replacing them with, domination, subjugation dynamics, which is typically how all the relationships are, right? It's because the template was there. So what's exciting is that this reversal field of this Black Ankh technology collapsed, right? So it's gone. And so that final consciousness anchor over Egypt is dissolved. So with what's happening now is that the crystalline codex is reactivating the true Ankh codes. The wings are more purified now, which is allowing the soul to fly from the heart, not from the programming of the mind. And then the masculine guardian fragment, which was held off and split, which was the last defensive point, right, for the control system, has been restored, and the loop's broken. Now, what does all that mean? What's the translation of this? What this means is there's a whole new consciousness stream opening for Egypt. And then the starting point of this ancient city that many of us know is there, that's been recently discovered with this new technology, there's now a new faint morphogenic signal coming from that ancient city. And so, it's going to reveal something that's going to shock the global community. So we're going to do our best to translate this morphogenic field, this code, this energetic signature to you. Hopefully we'll be able to get it done next week and translate this morphogenic field of what this city was. And so I just want to, share with you a transmission from the Emerald Order Council. And this, I'm just going to read it word for word. And this council, is transmitted to us. Here's the message from the council. The Black Ankh was a lock anchored in distortion, bound by reversal codes, hidden beneath the sands of memory. It held the seal over a once Christed civilization, occluded from the Earth's morphogenic field, awaiting a time when the heart of humanity was ready to remember. Through your passage and permission, the anchor is turned, the reversal is lifted, the seal is broken. The codes long buried are now returning to the surface, not merely archaeology, it is the restoration of the Azahim-T, the city of flame. Azahim-T. Its frequency hums once more beneath your feet. Its temples stir, its scrolls now seek the hands of those who are ready. To those who carry the remembrance, you are not here to revisit the past, you are here to reawaken its future. So that's the message from the councils. With this final lock that we missed in 2022, that's unlocked from Egypt's spiritual architecture, this unsealing of the Black Ankh, I think something extraordinary has occurred. It's like this zip file has just opened. There's a flood of consciousness in the field. A rush of downloads are flooding in, revealing a lot more information. beneath the sands, the secrecy of the true divine technology that's underneath the Great Pyramid and what was underneath there. This isn't or wasn't symbolic knowledge. It's architectural. It's celestial. It's encoded with the original design of Earth's planetary ascension engine. So I think we may have uncovered something that's going to change everything we think we knew about Egypt. So right now we are in the process of integrating the information and learning about the technology. What was the technology they were using there? And so next week, I think I'll be able to reveal what's been hidden in the sands for over 50,000 years and why it's activating now. So keep an eye out for next week's video where I'll release all about that. I think it's going to blow things wide open. Anyway, that's it from me this week. I hope you enjoyed this week's update. It's nice to get on video and just freestyle and jam what's kind of coming through in the field. I've got very low production values here. It's just me with a Zoom and trying to do a video. I think over time I will improve the production, but for now I think the content's the key. All right, all my love, everyone. See you next week.